Hey all, it's your boy Cryptic, and today's video is going to be some tips and tricks on the PlayStation 5 since launch date till the recent patch update for the firmware. So the first thing is, there was a bug on the PS5 where after you'd already entered the console into rest mode, plugging in a controller for charging, having that you had the correct settings applied for rest mode to allow charge and data usage and downloads and updates in the background. Once you plugged in a controller after you'd already set it into rest mode, it wouldn't actually charge your controller, which is really super weird. So a few days ago, there was a patch for the Sony firmware, for the PlayStation 5 firmware, and it just said general improvements, performance improvements, etc. But it seemed like it actually fixed a few of the concerns that users were reporting with the PS5. Good example here I'll show you is, as you can see with the orange light on the PS5, it's actually currently in rest mode. Here's the cable that's connected to the PS5 for charging, the USB Type-C. It's the one that's included with the PS5. And here is the DualSense controller. As you can see, lights are off, it's not plugged in, but we're gonna get it plugged in. So let's plug it in and see if it actually goes and begins charging the controller while it's currently in rest mode. Again, as you can see from the orange light there in the video, it is still in rest mode. So let's see if it actually works this time. It's plugged in. And there we go, we got the orange lights on the DualSense controller. So that is now charging. So that was fixed in the last firmware update, which, it probably should have worked out of the box, and it was kind of annoying, especially here in Australia, where the charging station, which you can see over there, I have a PS4 controller charging station, and behind that PlayStation Move controllers charging station. It's not available till December 3rd, so if you have more than one controller like I do here, you're pretty much stuck charging one at a time unless you plug in cables at the back of the console, and depending on your entertainment unit, that might be a bit of a pain in the butt, as you have to take your console in and out to do that. And it would be cool to have the PlayStation 5 charging station to do that. But yeah, most of us are still charging through the included cable through the front USB ports, and it wasn't working. In some cases, for some users, even after, if they'd plugged, well, the way I got it working was that before I entered the console into rest mode, I'd have the controller physically plugged into the console while it was operating, and then put it into rest mode, and that would initiate the charge. But if I, let's say this was fully charged and then I wanted to start charging the other controller, I would then need to turn on the console again, then plug in the other controller, then put it into rest mode again to repeat the cycle. Another pain in the butt. So in short, that's fixed now. While it's in rest mode, you can plug in any DualSense controller and it'll start beginning to charge if it needs to be charged. So yeah, let's get into the next one. Alright guys, so for the next thing, if you've gone through the PlayStation 5 manual setups website, it highly discourages you going through an amplifier or a speaker or any sort of audio amplifier setup that passes through a video signal, HDR signal to the TV. It's saying that most likely, well, it's not recommended as it's not compatible. It will not do 4K 60 Hertz or 4K 120 Hertz. So I'll show you quickly the setup that I have. This is the Sony GT-H700 from memory. It's the Atmos soundbar with the wireless subwoofer. It has ARC connection to the TV, which is HDMI 2.1, and then it also has an input device which is also up to 2.1 compliant, HDMI 2.1 compliant, which is I'm using for the PS5. So basically the PS5 is there, the HDMI runs through the back of the entertainment unit, through past the TV and into here, right? And then from here, I'm running a HDMI straight to the back of the TV. So basically right now it is running at 4K 60, which is perfectly fine. Which is weird. I don't know why Sony would put that on their website, on instruction manuals, and just, don't use like a Denon amp, don't use anything like that. Even though that if you wanted to run external speakers and not use the TV speakers that are included with your TV, you would need something that's HDMI compliant in order to do that. And putting that into the setup guide and warning, don't do this, is a bit weird. But I will show you. I'll go straight into the settings and show you that this is running at 4K 60 with HDR enabled. So if we go to settings here, and then we go down to screen and video, and then we go to video output information. So there you can see from top to bottom, it's running 3840 by 2160 at 60 Hertz, HDR supported, and yeah, HDR is enabled from the home screen. Don't know why they do that. Maybe because they've tested it on other brands and they're just not there yet, considering HDMI 2.1 is such a new format, especially with bugger all TVs having it as a feature right now. I think you got the Sony and the new Sony, I think G series TVs, and the LG CX OLED TV. They're the only ones that I know that are mostly out there in the mainstream in order with 2.1 compliancy. But even if you don't have 2.1, you can actually run your TV and console through your amp or through your speaker system, pass out a HDR and 4K signal, which is pretty cool. All right, we'll get into the next one, guys. All right, on to the next one. So as you know, like the PlayStation 4, the PS5 allows you to record in-game gameplay. It does allow you to record up to 4K. It doesn't specify a frame rate. It's most likely at 40 frames per second. The hardware is very powerful in the PS5, but in order to continue playing your game at a reasonable performance while recording, even on PC, some sacrifices have to be made. Unless you're streaming isn't as much taxing on the GPU as it is on the CPU, but it does allow you to record in 4K. But here's the catch, it's a format in 4K that might be a challenge for a lot of people. So if we hit the share button here on the controller, and we go to capture options. So as you can see, what I've got set up here is HDR is on. Screen file type auto. Webm is the video file type, and you'll be probably thinking, what in the world is Webm? Webm is like a HTML5 sort of format of video. It's less taxing on websites and on systems to record in that or output and play video using that. So you don't really need like Flash or anything like that. It's sort of the HTML5 code within the site or browser that will just allow you to play those videos. But that sounds great, Cryptic, but why is it so challenging for people if they're recording in this format? Not a lot of video editing software supports Webm. Very few, if any, to be honest with you. There are plugins for Adobe Premiere that will help support Webm, but if you're using something like Sony Vegas, I'm not sure. Sony Vegas might support it also a plugin on natively, but it was never a format while I used it back in the day that did it. I mean, Webm has been around since 2010. That's sort of where it's sort of picking up traction. But yeah, if you're using DaVinci Resolve like I do, it doesn't support it. So if you want to record in 4K on the PS5, you'll need to use the Webm. Now, here's the cool thing. PS5 does have its own software editing suite, Share Factory Studio, which obviously supports the Webm format, and you can edit your videos there and probably export them to MP4. But even then, when it does render them out, it renders them out in Webm as well. So when you do the compression, the rendering, the encoding, all that, it still will be in the Webm format. It won't go to MP4, which is arguably the best format for YouTube and most other upload platforms because it's the most compatible format for video. But it is in Webm. So take that into account if you're going to be using the internal recording feature. You will be restricted to Webm at 4K. Though, if you switch to Full HD, 1920 by 1080, you can switch between Webm or MP4 on the PlayStation 5. That one allows you the option, which for most people, 1080p will probably be the format that makes the most sense. But it all depends if you're doing, I guess, game reviews or in-depth playthroughs for a game or whatever, and you want to really show as best as possible the quality of the game, the frame rate, the resolution, the art and everything, you probably end up wanting to do that 4K. But then that also takes into other factors, your internet connection for uploading 4K files, because they will be large. On average, I think from memory, a 4K file of these settings, HDR enabled on Webm, at about 10 to 15 minutes is about between 5 and 6 gigabytes. Which leads into the other thing. If you are transferring files that big and you want to transfer them from the PS5 to, let's say, a flash disk from the front, don't do it. You will get an error code at pretty much that the the transfer speeds aren't fast enough to allow the whole copy. You'll get about between 50 to 70% done, and then it'll just say, no, I can't do it. You'll need to plug it into the back on the faster speed USB ports on the PS5, and then you should be fine to actually export your videos from your PS5 to USB and then edit them on your personal computer. But yeah, just wanted to let you guys know, if you are thinking of recording in-game recordings in 4K, it'll be in the WebM format. It won't be an MP4, so you might want to use, let's say, like a external capture card off your PS5 and record that way, and then you could probably do things in MP4 format, 4K, 30 frames per second or 60, and that might be the way you go with it. So yeah, on to the next one. Alright guys, here's on to the last one. Another tip on the PS5, if you haven't really realized it by now, it does play PS4 games, right? So you have an extensive back catalog of games to play, not just the PlayStation 5 launch titles. Now, I've said that you probably want to play them off an external SSD, not a hard drive. But if it's something that you're going to be accessing a lot, and let's say a hard drive might be a bit hard for you to plug in at the moment because you will need to use the back PS5 ports to do that, just have it installed directly onto the disk. Here what you'll see is proper recording using the PS5's internal recorder of Genshin Impact. The reason I'm just using this as an example, on PS4, this game runs terrible. Frame rate wise anyway, it runs terrible. It is so sluggish, it is so slow. But here, smooth, beautiful 60 frames per second, and loading times are so much quicker, insanely quicker. It's not instant like Spider-Man Miles Morales or Remastered or Demon Souls or Sackboy, etc. or Bugsnax. It's not instant like that, but because it's an online sort of persistent world, and it's dependent also on your internet connection of how fast you'll end up loading, it is like half. It's reduced by 50 to 60% of the loading time. So what I'll do, I'll actually show a perfect example here. I will jump into the map and we'll just fast travel somewhere, anywhere. Let's go to Starfall Lake, teleport, loading bar on the bottom. Yes, you still get the transition screen, but if you play Genshin Impact on your PS4, even PS4 Pro, it takes way longer than that. You're waiting, 30 seconds or so, if not more, in some instances, if you have poor internet connection. Now, look, I'm in Australia. We don't have the best internet in the world. We have NBN, and there's memes galore about the NBN service in this country. But as you can see, that was instantaneous. So look, the PS5. PS5's SSD makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Right into the action, and we'll go into an actual fight here. Might as well, and just show you how fluid things are with enemies on the screen. Good, getting hit. There we go. Wiping the floor with it. There we go. Beautiful 60 frames per second. So if you've got a back catalog of PS4 games, give them a shot and see how they'll run. The PlayStation Plus collection also has a bunch of PS4 games to take advantage. 4K 60. 4K 60 is amazing. Look, if you even have a newer TV that has the HDMI 2.1 compliancy and get that 4K 120, not many games at the moment are doing 120 Hertz. There is a list on the PlayStation blog and other news outlets that have listed them up. I'll try and link it down in the description box below. If you have any of those games, give them a shot and play at 4K 60 or 4K 120 Hertz.
and you're going to have a blast. So without further ado, guys, that's it for today's video. If you can hit the like button, comment below, it all helps the YouTube algorithm to sort of get the video out there, people watching. If you really enjoyed it and you want more content, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any videos in the future. And yeah, and until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye.